Hello everybody, welcome to another video. So today I will be doing an overview of the modes of the melodic minor scale. And the way I'm going to do this time is that I'm not just going to go over the modes, I'm also going to go over some chord progressions that you could build in those modes. So let us start off with the melodic minor scale itself. It's got the formula 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically that is a major scale with a flat 3. Or you could think of it as a minor scale with raised 6th and 7th. Ooh. There you have it, G melodic minor. So obviously the character notes of this scale is going to be the flat 3 because that's the only note that differentiates the scale from major. And let's take a quick look at the chords we could build. So if we start off with in the key of C, for example, you're going to get C, E flat, and G, C minor. So I'm actually going to switch over to Roman numeral notation here. So you get a 1 minor, then you get the 2, 4, 6 notes. That makes it a 2 minor. You have flat 3, 5, 7. So that means you get flat 3 aug. Then you got 4, 6, 1. That means that you have a 4 major. 5, 7, 2. That's a 5 major. 6, 1, flat 3. That will be a 6 diminished. And a 7, 2, 4. That will be a 7 diminished. So there are the chords in melodic minor. And a great way to get the sound of the scale is to go from the 1 to the 4 to the 5. That's a great way to encompass all the notes of the scale in a simple chord progression to 1, 4, 5, 1. Or if you want to extend it a little further, you could go 1. So you could go 1, 4, 5, 1. Or you could also go, staying in the key of staying in the melodic minor scale, you could go 1, 4, 2, 5. And then have it loop there. So that'll be like nice and jazzy. Let's also see what kind of 7th chords we could get. So let me just switch my color over to blue. So we get a 1 minor major 7. So I could just add a little triangle there to indicate that it's a major 7. You get D, F, A, C. So you get a 2 minor 7. So I could just throw in 7. Flat 3 aug. So you have E flat, G, B, D in the key of C. So that'll be with a major 7. So I'm just going to add a little triangle for major 7. F, A, C, E flat. So that'll be a dominant 7. If I wanted major 7, I'd add in the triangle. G, B, D, F. That's a 5, 7. You have the 6 diminished. A, C, E flat, G. So that'll be, I actually drawing a little slasher to indicate half diminished. Minor 7 flat 5. You get B, D, F, A. That makes another half diminished. Which means that now if we want to extend these chord progressions to 7ths, we could go 1 minor major 7, 4 dominant 7, nice little bluesy sound there, I guess, 5 dominant 7, and then back to the 1 minor, but I'm not going to throw in the major 7 this time because it doesn't sound most resolved. Or if we go for this chord loop, but here, 1, 4, 2, 5, we could spice it up by keeping the 1 the way it is. We could add in the 4th dominant 7, the 2 minor 7, and the 5 dominant 7. So a nice little jazzy progression there, I guess. Not going to play it right now, though. Don't have my keyboard on me. Sorry. So now that we covered that first mode, the melodic minor itself, let's move on to the second mode. So imagine you took these same notes, say we're in the key of C, so C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, and you just moved it so that the tonic is now D. Yet you get the notes D, that's 1, E flat, F, then you get a G, A, B, C. So that will give us the 1 flat 2 flat 3 4 5 6 flat 7. Here the only difference between this and Dorian is obviously the flat 2. So we call this scale Dorian flat 2. Ooh. They have Dorian flat 2. So now let's see what chords we can make from this scale. So you could get a 1 minor. And if we want the 7th, we could just throw in a minor 7th on there. You get the flat 2 augmented, and you have major 7 on top of that chord. Of course, so let's just add in the little triangle for the major 7. Then you get the flat 3 will be a regular major chord. Although if you want, you can make it a dominant 7th. Then you can get the 4 chord will be major, like in regular Dorian. Then you get the 5 chord is actually a diminished chord, like Phrygian. So now I can see, but hey, I forgot to include the fact that the 4 chord would have dominant 7th on it. And of course I made it white by mistake. Let's fix that. And then the 5 is a half diminished. Then the 6 chord is, I believe, diminished. Yes, the 6 chord is diminished as well. Or half diminished if you want to add in the 7th. And then, yeah, the flat 7 is minor, like in Phrygian, which I find pretty interesting. And that would have a major 7th on top of it. So the Dorian flat 2 is kind of like a blend of Dorian and Phrygian. It's kind of like, so it's kind of like what you get when you take Dorian mode and you basically like say, actually, no, that's not a good analogy. It's like, let's say you take the Dorian mode and you buy it from Temu. How does that sound? Like, it's like you took Dorian and bought it from Temu. That's what this scale is. Because, you know, get it, Temu sometimes is bad quality products. Or knockoff products, I should say. So that's where the flat 2 is coming from. So you could also say it's like you bought Phrygian from Temu. Because, you know, like this scale is obviously a blend of Dorian and Phrygian. Although it does not, like, it's got the natural 6 of Dorian, but it's got the flat 2 of Phrygian. Like, that's just so weird. Now let's build the chord progression. So you get the 1 minor 7. And of course, it came out white again. Then you will get, after the 1 minor 7, you could go to the 4 dominant. Yep, and there you go to the 4 dominant. Pretty nice little move there. 1 minor 7 to 4 dominant. Pretty common in Dorian. But then how will I resolve back? That's a good question. Let me actually think for a moment. So if you got D flat, F, and A, the D flat could... Oh. Pretty difficult. Oh, yeah. I guess we could do like this, where you have the flat 2 augmented, resolving onto the 4 chord again, and then that 4 chord will go back to 1 in like a bluesy kind of feel. So it's just like a nice little 4 chord loop there. So that's the first 2 modes. And now we're going to move on to the 3rd mode. This one is weird because technically the note that you're flattening is 1st degree. So it's going to be a bit weird, but here we go. So you got, so say you take the notes of C melodic minor, but you start and end on E flat instead. So you're going to get an E flat, you're going to get an F, you're going to get a G, you're going to get an A, that's a sharp 4. You're going to get a B, that's a sharp 5, extremely spicy if you ask me. Then you're going to get a C, sharp. Then you're going to get a C, in the key of E flat, obviously. Then you're going to get a D, and there you have it. The 3rd mode of melodic minor. Ooh. And I think I messed up. It's no big deal. I actually know I messed up. I meant to sing a regular 7, so I actually sang the flat 7 there, but no big deal. The note that, there's one note, this scale is 1 note different from Lydian, and that 1 note that's different is a sharp 5. Which basically means, which basically takes a scale of Lydian, which is already an extremely bright scale, and introduces a whole new level of brightness to it. From my experience working with scale, bear in mind I actually have had very minimal experience working with this scale, but it's still something. So let's build some chords. So you can build a augmented chord on the tonic. For the rest of this, by the way, I'm not going to include the 7-song chords because it's getting a little bit tiring. Then you have the 2 major. Then you get the 3 major, which is actually an extraordinarily bright chord I have found. I found, like, from my experience working with major key songs that use the 3 major, like, is an extremely bright sound. I don't know any examples in good Jewish music. Like, the only way I even know about this is because I watched some music theory videos from David Bennett, and his video on secondary dominance includes Creep by Radiohead, which basically, if you don't know that song, Tavia Lechem Bracha, but it basically but the chord progression is G to B to C minor. So, like, he was explaining how, like, secondary dominants don't have to resolve a perfect fifth down. So that's how come you can have the B chord resolving to the C chord, which in the key of G is a major 3 chord resolving to the 4 chord. But yeah, that was just a little bit on tangent. But yeah, the 3 major is just such a bright sound. Like, especially if you play a tonic major, not a tonic augmented, that 3 major is just, like, so darn bright. Moving on with the chords. So now you have a sharp 4, and I believe that'll be diminished. Yep, then you have a sharp 5 diminished. Then you're going to get a 6 minor. And then you're going to get the 7 minor, which is characteristic of Lydian. So let's build some chord progression. So let's build a chord progression, shall we? Well, it's not going to be too stable. Just bear that in mind that, yeah, because the 1 chord is augmented, not major or minor, it's going to be kind of unstable, but let's try. So you got the 1 augmented moving to the 2. Then you could go to the flat 7. My bad, the 7 minor. I don't know why I said flat 7 there. You go to the 7 minor, then to the 6 minor. And I actually have used this chord progression before, just with the tonic major as opposed to a tonic augmented chord in my song Light. Well, that part isn't really using this chord progression, but the part that is, like the verses, winter is a dark time, like that little bit is sung over a 1 major moving to a 2 major. That can be hard. And that part is sung over the 7 minor moving to 6 minor. So, very characteristic progression in Lydian mode. The reason I chose to avoid using the 3 major here is because I wanted to feel Lydian, and we're already getting that sharp 5th in the tonic augmented chord here. Another variation on this progression could actually go 1 aug, 2 major, 3 major, so that you're introducing that 3 major, and then that resolves neatly to the 6 chord. And then from there you could actually go to the 2 chord if you really want to extend it into a 5-bar loop. But I'm going to stick with 4 bars here. Moving on to the 4th mode, Lydian dominant. You have a root, 2nd, 3rd, sharp 4th, 5th, 6th, flat 7th. Ooh. Let's try again. Ooh. There we go. Lydian dominant. The only note that there's actually kind of 2 characteristic notes here, like that's up because this is kind of like a blend of Lydian and Mixolydian, kind of like how Dorian flat 2 is a blend of Dorian and Phrygian. I'm going to pick, but because the name of the mode is Lydian dominant, I'm going to pick the 1 note that differentiates this from Lydian as the characteristic note, and that will be the flat 7. And now if I go ahead and do the chords here, you're going to get a 1 major, a 2 major, very characteristic of Lydian, Then you're going to get the 3 diminished, extremely characteristic of the Mixolydian scale. Then you have the sharp 4 diminished, characteristic of Lydian. Then you have the 5 minor, characteristic of Mixolydian. Then you have the 6 minor, which is found in both, as it turns out. Same goes with 1 major, by the way. Then you have the flat 7 augmented, which is found in neither. Because, this is not a standard mode of the major scale. It's actually melodic minors are taking modes of, so that's why the flat 7 augmented belongs in neither. You just don't get augmented chords in diatonic modes. It's as simple as that. So now let's work out some chord progressions that we could use. We could use this vamp between 1 and 2. Or if you want to extend it into a 4-bar loop, you could throw in maybe that 6 minor moving to 5 minor if you want to make it into a 4-bar loop. I would try to avoid the flat 7 augmented in this case. If you want to get that flat 7 note, I would suggest using the 5 minor to get that note in there. And then another little variation would use the sharp 4 diminished, resolving up to the 5 minor, instead of doing the 6 minor to the 5 minor. Okay, so now next mode. This is probably the most commonly used mode, the one that we're about to look at now. This is probably the most commonly used mode of melodic minor, after melodic minor itself, obviously. And that will be this one, Mixolydian flat 6. Once I finish writing down the notes, I'll sing the scale. Ooh. So you have Mixolydian flat 6. Obviously, the note that makes this different from Mixolydian is this one, the flat 6. Let's build some chords. So you got the root major, you got a 2 diminished, you got a 3 diminished, once again characteristic of Mixolydian. By the way, you can think of this as a blend of Mixolydian and Aeolian, also known as natural minor. That's where this 2 diminished chord comes from. And that's also where the 4 minor comes from. The 5 minor comes from both, technically. And then you have the flat 6 is augmented, the flat 7 is major. And let's build some progressions. So very common vamp and Mixolydian flat 6, as well as harmonic major, for that matter, is the 1 moving to the 4 minor. Although you could also extend this into a full 4-bar loop by throwing in the 5 minor and flat 7 chords. So you could extend that into a full... Wait, did I just think 3 eyes? Yes, I did. Let's fix that. So yeah, so you have the 5 chord and flat 7 chord. Could be used to extend this 1 major to 4 minor vamp into a full 4-bar loop. You could also try something like 1 major, 4 minor, flat 6 aug for that little bright augmented fifth there. And then you have the flat 7 chord, resolving up to the 1. So you get this what's going on with me today? You get this little Mario Kart thing going on here. I guess you could think of you get this Super Mario thing going on. Yeah, kind of like that, I guess. And now for the last 2 modes, these are the 2 diminished modes of this scale. And the reason I'm calling them diminished modes is because both of them have a diminished triad as the root. So now we have the 6th mode of melodic minor. Goes like this: 1, 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, I believe. Yeah. Yes. You have a flat 6, flat 7. So as you can see, it's like a minor scale, but the 5th is flat. That is a problem. If you know anything about Locrian mode, you know why the flat 5th could be a real problem. And yep, that's right. We build a 1 diminished. We build a tonic diminished. We build a 2 diminished. You could build a flat 3 minor, just like in Locker-In, which I actually think is pretty cool. Like, it's also, like, the saddest chord you could ever use in any key. Like, that's why I found, like, I'm sure you've all heard the thing like Hillary about. And then it gets to this part. And when it hits that last note there, it's played over flat 3 minor. Bear in mind, this is a minor key song. So like when you hit that note there, that note, that is sung over a flat 3 minor chord. And I just found this so moving. So now you get the 4 minor, then you're going to get the flat 5 augmented. Then you're going to get the flat 6 major and flat 7 major. And I guess with this scale, like, you can't really resolve to the diminished chord. So I'm not going to even attempt to build the standard chord progression. Instead, I will actually look at the quartal harmony chords of this scale. I don't know if you've ever heard of quartal harmony, but basically it's where you use fourths instead of thirds to build chords. And basically in quartal harmony, we would get, instead of having these standard chords, you would get something like 1 4 flat 7, which will be like the 1 7 sus 4. Or I'm just going to call it the 1 7 sus to simplify things a little. Then you get the 2, so that would be D. Then you get a G flat, and then you get a C. So then you could get like a 2 minor 7. Actually, never mind. Like I'm just looking for like some of the easier chords here. So you could like do a 1 7 sus. Do E flat, A flat, D. Nah, probably not a good idea. F, B flat, D. That's a great one. Then you can move to like the 4 7 sus. Actually, never mind. Is it 4 7? No, it's actually F, B flat, E flat. Yes, it is the 4 7 sus. And then you could take it up for some really impactful, for the full impact of the scale. You could probably take it up to. You could probably take it down to You could probably take it down to a dominant 7th chord built on the 2 chord, but you could probably take it down to a dominant 7th emit with a flat 5 built on the 2. And I'm still counting that as a quartal chord because the bottom interval is the 4th, albeit a diminished 4th. And there is a 7th in the chord. So then you can go to this one. 2 7 flat 5. I know that is not a standard. I know that is not spelled correctly, but I'm just using it because, you know, D to G flat is an harmonic to D to F sharp. So you still get that major 3rd sound, even though it's technically diminished 4th. So might as well use it. And here we have a 3 chord loop. And yeah, now moving on to the very last mode of the melodic minor. Probably the most commonly used mode in jazz, by the way, except for the melodic minor itself, obviously, also known as jazz minor. Like, literally, the ascending form of the melodic minor scale is called jazz minor by many musicians. So probably this scale, this last mode, is the second most commonly used mode of melodic minor in jazz. Because it's the altered scale. Let's go. Let's build it. 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, and flat 7. We have flatted every single note that's possible to be flattened in a scale, but only once. Like, I mean, it is possible to like throw a double flat on that 7, but then, you know, that's gonna get very messy very quickly. So if you're using only single flats, this is a scale that has every possible note flattened, because the root can never be flattened. Remember that. If you flatten the root, you just wind up with a major scale built on built a semitone below your root. The one note that makes this different from Locrian is a flat 4. That is why this scale, besides for being called the altered scale, is sometimes called super Locrian, because it takes Locrian and goes one step further by flattening the 4th. And if we try to build some traditional chords here, we get a 1 diminished. We actually get a flat 2 major. No, that's not major. That's actually minor. Flat 2 major would be the natural 4. You get the flat 2 minor. Then you get a flat 3 minor. To be honest, I've never even heard any songs whatsoever that use a flat 2 minor, regardless of whether it's Chabad and Gonim or non-Jewish music or anything. I've never heard the flat 2 minor be used in a song before. Even if you do not alter the tonic. I mean, technically, it is possible to have a minor or even major tonic chord while still having the flat 2 minor in the scale. But yeah, moving on here. So we have the flat 4 augmented. This is literally just a 3 major, but this is literally just a 3 augmented chord, but I'm spelling it as flat 4 because otherwise it'll mess up the whole scale. You get the flat 5 major, then you get the flat 6, so A flat C, then you get the flat 6, and then believe it or not, you actually get a flat 7 diminished, so even darker than regular Locrian, as you can see, because you got the flat 2 minor and a flat 7 diminished. So I am not going to even attempt to build quartal harmony in this because the 4th is flat, so why even bother? So I guess that wraps up this video on modes of the melodic minor. Hope you all have a great Erev Shabbos. Mashiach now, Zagazon and Zagabench.